Welcome to our Lobbying Lunch and Learn series. This is the first installment of our Lobbying Lunch and Learn series. I am your host, Lil Day. I'm the director of the Central Georgia Democracy Center, and we are here in partnership with We Are One Georgia. Now, before we get started, go ahead, put in the chat where you are tuned in from and which organization you represent. Now, because this is a lunch and learn, this is fast paced, so if you have any questions, drop it in the chat and we'll get to it in the discussion, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. So, let's see, We Are One Georgia. First and foremost, if you are familiar with We Are One Georgia, put a 1 in the chat. We've done a bit of work around Georgia, around Alabama as well. We are dedicated to organizing, community empowerment, and civic engagement initiatives, okay? Our 3 principles here, however, are to educate on public policy and voter rights, as well as to help encourage an open and healthy dialogue around civic engagement. We can't forget to advocate for state of Georgia residents through political literacy, right? And in doing all of this, we've had the honor of endorsing and training 2 political candidates. Interestingly enough, both of those candidates had the same first name as well. So we're here with the little icebreaker, right? We're going to start with the icebreaker. For one, put in the chat what makes you show up for this work. Second, I want you to put in the chat, did a particular person ask or inspire you to learn this skill? Like, what made you want to get into lobbying or to learn more about lobbying? Lastly, put in the chat, how are you going to use this training to advocate for your community? These are important, and we'll touch on them later on. If you can imagine, if you can imagine, we'll touch on them a little bit throughout the presentation, okay? Now, we're here with the State of Georgia General Assembly, okay? Now, if you do not know, the state of Georgia has 2 bodies of legislature. The State House has 180 members. The State Senate has 56 members. Now, these members come together and serve a 2-year term, and there are 2-year sessions, right? So each 2-year term has a 2-year session, okay? So Georgia's session has 40 legislative days. It begins on the second Monday in January. In our upcoming legislative session, it'll be January 12th, 2026. And this is the second year of that 2-year session. The first session began January 2025, okay? And the legislative day is considered to be a day where there is time for the floors of the House and the Senate to vote on bills. So this is where we get the term legislation is in session, right? Because they're voting on bills. Now, this is what's important for your lobbying efforts, right? You need to know if you're talking to members of the House. You need to know if you're talking to members of the Senate. You also need to know the leadership of both, okay? So we have a pretty detailed list. This is current as of today. We have our leadership for the Senate. We have our leadership for the House. Now, I'm going to click on this tab here. If you go to Georgia General Assembly, that's legis.ga.gov, you'll be able to find all the information you need to know about the House and the Senate, legislation, bills, their calendar, etc. I would advise that you go there and just familiarize yourself, okay? But in this slide deck, we have the hyperlinks for each branch, okay? Now, with the bills, we have a process, Okay? This process is pretty extensive. It's pretty time consuming as well, and it requires attention to detail. You need to know what part of this process you are in, which part that you are going to address where you're most valuable, your strengths, and then you need to know where it needs to go from where you are. Okay, and then because that will inform the amount of advocacy, grassroots, boots on the ground, mobilization that you will need to do. Okay, so first we have the bill is introduced, right? So we have our representative that has introduced this bill. It then moves to being assigned to a committee. So you have the bill introduced. The bill is based on the introduction. It's assigned to a committee. Then the committee acts on the bill, meaning it creates the rules, right, for the bill. It accepts the bill, then create whatever rules or stipulations of that bill, fine-tunes that bill, right? Then it is moved to the floor for a vote. That's yay, nay, right? After the vote, it moves to the next chamber, where it is assigned to another committee. The committee acts. Again, it rules on those acts, right? It rules on what, if it needs to be fine-tuned, if it is missing anything, if it whatever. They make action towards that within that committee, and then it is moved to the floor for a vote. Once it passes that vote, it is then sent to the governor's desk for it to be signed. Okay? Emphasis here on the two floors and how it needs to move through both chambers in order for it to make it to the governor's desk. Okay? In the state of Georgia, the legislature has a crossover day. Okay? And in 2026, that crossover day is March 12th. It is the 30th day of the legislative session for that 2-year period. Remember, the legislative session in Georgia began in 2025. It will end in 2026. Okay? On this crossover day, bills must pass the chamber where they originated. Okay? And move to the opposite chamber for further action. Now, the deadline here is that for bills to have a chance to become law, they have to move through both chambers completely, okay, and then be sent to the governor. But they have to move through the chambers by crossover day. Now, Georgia's legislature or legislative sessions have a 2-year long. Remember, a 2-year long session. Bills that don't cross over on the first day of the 2-year session can continue to be discussed in the first year, throughout that first year, with the goal of being passed in that second year. Okay? So a lot of times when we have a bill introduced and we know we need more community movement, community engagement, community mobilization, that bill will be introduced and organizations will spend that first year of, putting boots on the ground to get community engagement, to get testimonies, to get all of these things. That way, during the second year, by crossover day, it will make the movement. It will show that its value, if you will. So it will have movement, it will have momentum to make movement into that next chamber for a vote to be sent to the governor. Okay? Now, we have a brief little demonstration. This is Lobbying 101. One way that I like to help organizers get into the hang of going down there and going on the ropes with your representative, because that's what it is. It's like a 2-minute wrestling bout, okay, with your representative, to introduce yourself and say that you're constituent, to get to the point of the matter. What is it that you want? Tell them why they should act. And now, in doing all of that, you're going to get some opposition. You're going to get some pushback. You're going to get some devil's advocate, right? Handle those differences with grace. Because again, in many cases, these representatives, they are representing hundreds of thousands of people. And what may resonate with one community may not have reached the rest of those hundreds of thousands of people. And if it hasn't reached those hundreds of thousands of people, it probably hasn't reached that representative as well. So they are doing their due diligence to ask the pertinent questions to make sure that this is something that will be receptive in the community, for one. So handle it with grace. Always thank them. Always offer to follow up. Let them know, say, hey, Representative so-and-so, thank you for your time. I'm going to send you an email with everything we talked about to give you more information. I'm going to send you an email with our media packet. I'm going to send you an email with the slide deck, whatever. Always let them know you're going to follow up, okay? This should take 2 minutes. 2 minutes. And remember, you have 30 seconds to grab their attention, okay? So imagine and this is why we call it on the ropes, because imagine you're wrestling a bull. You got to grab that bull by the horns and tame it. You don't have much time. Think of bull riding. They have 8 seconds, right? That's 8 seconds to wrangle that bull. With our representatives, you may have a grace period of 30 seconds, but you still have to get them in tune and in alignment with what you're saying. Captivate them. You have about 30 seconds, and then your spew should be 2 minutes tops. Okay? Now, if you're going to lobby on the floor, that's one thing. That's where you're doing most of your on the ropes, because you're meeting your representatives on the floor of the Capitol, right? They're out and about. They're out of their office. So you're catching them as they're going from one meeting to the next meeting. There may be a lobby day already happening at the Capitol, so many of the important representatives may already be out of their office, so you're catching them and wrangling them while they're on the floor. But there are other times where you will meet your elected official in their office, right? This is more intimate, more one-on-one. So you want to be prepared, okay? You don't need to know everything, but you do need to look like you tried, okay? Your representatives understand that you are not a politician. They understand that you are a representative of the community, that you are an advocate for the community, okay? So know what it is that you know. Know what drives you. If you are there for environmental justice, then you need to know some pending legislation around environmental justice in Georgia. If you're there for reproductive justice, you need to know some pending legislation around reproductive justice as well. If you're there for agriculture, know pending legislation for agriculture, etc., etc. Okay? Include information specific to your state, city, or demographic if possible. Meaning, if you are there for an environmental justice issue and you are advocating for the residents of McDonough, Georgia, then have that information handy. Okay? So your demographic, well, your city would be McDonough, and you would have data on environmental pollutants or environmental, you name it, whatever, right? You would have that handy. If it's something environmental within the city of McDonough, but it's targeting or affecting a specific demographic, meaning, let's say, Black residents within McDonough, Georgia are experiencing air pollution. This is hypothetical, okay? They're experiencing air pollution at an alarming rate. Then you would have that information available, okay? Decide on one specific ask, meaning if this is for reproductive justice and you want a bill, you want your representative to counter an abortion ban, right? That's the ask. That is all. Counter this abortion ban. You'll get further that way, because again, your representative is representing hundreds of thousands of people, and they are doing one task. Let's say one task per person, right? Or at least per community. Okay? So you want to make sure that you have a solid ask that is specific and that will meet your needs or your community's needs. Limit yourself to 3 talking points. You do not need to have a scroll rolled out across the floor of the office and you're just reading off talking point after talking point. For one, you don't have the time for that. And 2, your representative doesn't have the bandwidth for that. Okay? 3 talking points. 3. This is why we say your ask should be specific, your ask should be solid. 1 to 3 talking points is all you will need. Okay? Prepare an information packet to have on hand, especially if your meeting is cut short. Again, this goes back to if you are on the ropes with your representative, meeting them on the floor, you are following up. You want to have something in hand. Give them something that they can look at. Give them something that they can go over, that they can ponder, okay? Now, do not take offense if your meeting is cut short as well. Again, you have to handle this with grace. It's not that it's a difference, but again, our representatives are human. There may be an emergency at the Capitol. They may be a personal family emergency with a child or a grandparent or something. You never know. Anything can happen. But you want to leave your legacy, leave your mark, leave your imprint on that representative by leaving something in hand. Okay? Always have it. I don't care if it's a quick card, a palm card, a push card, a brochure, a slide deck, whatever. Leave something that's digestible for them to ponder. Keep it on their mind. And then always follow up. Right? Let them know, hey, thank you for your time. I'm going to send you an email with the points of what we shared today. Or I'm going to send you an email with our slide deck. I'm going to send you an email with our brochure. You name it. Let them know you're going to follow up. And even if you don't let them know you're going to follow up, follow up. Okay? Stay top of mind. Now, the art of redirection. As I shared earlier, you're going to have instances where you might just meet a representative that plays devil's advocate, and they want to see how serious or how passionate, how important your matter is to you. If you were just sent in as a bot, or as the young folks would say, as an NPC, or are you someone that is dedicated to the constituency that they represent, just as they are, right? So know what you do not want to talk about. That's any sticky issue, any unpersuasive argument, okay? Stay away from those. Anything that is time consuming, that would just drain the short time that you have with your representative, don't do it. It takes away from the value of your ask. Answer like a politician. Even though they understand that you're not a politician, meet them where they are. Right? Answer like a politician and only talk about what you want to talk about. You can pivot. Popular pivots are the important thing is, or what really matters, or I like to bring us back to. And again, handle this with grace. You can even do it with a smile. You can do it with a laugh. Because again, politicians, your representative deals with sticky issues all the time. So it is human nature. This is something expected. It's par for the course. It comes with the job. So it is not a matter of, oh my goodness, I don't want to talk about this. You don't have to be so stringent. A lot of times, this is how you build your trust. This is how you build rapport with your politician. It's not personal. Okay? So this trust is built between you and your experience. It builds the value between you and your experience, and then it builds the value with the audience, their values and experience, right? So that means if I have an experience, I'm representing this cause for agriculture, and I have this compelling story to share, that's great. That adds value to your experience. That adds value to your ask, right? But it also bridges a gap. It bridges that trust that can only be won and not demanded. So stories and values are how we build trust. It means we have a like mind. We're here for a common cause. I'll use myself for an example. This morning, I had a meeting with Commissioner Anglin out in Henry County. And of course, he shared stories about his family that he doesn't necessarily share in public. It's not public information that you would just find about him, you know. But we had a shared cause, at least a shared mission, a shared vision, coming from opposing backgrounds or different backgrounds, right? So he's sharing his experience. And guess what? We had more in common than we thought. I'm sharing my experience. And even though we come from two completely different backgrounds, as far as what has informed our desire to push that particular initiative forward, it helped to establish trust. Because now, hey, I know where he's coming from. He knows where I'm coming from. He understands that this is something passionate to me, and I understand that he's passionate and he's taking it seriously as well. Okay? All right. So sharing your story. Imagine that you have legitimately 2 minutes. You have 30 seconds to captivate, and you have a remaining 1 minute, 30 seconds to drive it home. You have to get your introduction, your ask, the reason why you're there, and a story in. You have to, you have very limited time. So boil it down to essential points, right? Now, if you're in a meeting, you may have up to 30 minutes. Up to 30 minutes. But again, that doesn't mean that you're going to spend 20 minutes just sharing your story. No. So imagine writing an outline of your story. You may only have time for a few bullet points. All right? Make them compelling. Make them all compelling. And that way, the ones that you touch on, those will be the ones you drive home. So highlight the points that will be more essential or persuasive to your argument. Okay? If you have time for details, identify the ones that add value. And here's a pro tip. You don't always have to go in chronological order. Start with something attention grabbing. Okay? Today, I used the fact that I was a Gullah Geechee woman, a Gullah Geechee person. Do you know who the Gullah Geechee are? One person in the room said yes. One person said no. And by the time I started talking about the demographics and what it consists of, the other person was like, oh yes, I do know about them, because they were familiar with the geographical area. Okay? So yes, just start, it doesn't have to be in chronological order. Start with something that'll grab some attention and then build upon that. Now, strategy. Strategy. How to be strategic in your lobbying. You want to identify your targets, okay? So you have, down here, you have the folk that's not on the radar. Up here at 10, you have the decision maker, right? That'll be the governor. In between there, that's where you're going to do your lobbying. That's where you're going to do, you're going to be on the ropes. That's where you're going to schedule the meeting. And there's strategy to this, because you may know Representative Mattern, right? You may know Representative Mattern, so you schedule your meeting with Representative Mattern, but you're going to do your homework before you schedule that meeting. You're going to look at laws that Representative Mattern has already voted on, right? And they don't necessarily have to be laws associated with your ask, but just in general, how does she vote? When you look that up, you're also going to see who votes like her. Who are the other representatives that are voting on these issues? And if you notice a pattern or a repetition in names, those are also the people that you want to schedule appointments with. So as you can see on this graph, you have Representative Mattern. She votes or has ties with Senator Price. You see Senator Price, good friends with Senator Gordon, and Senator Gordon, him in the committee chair They're good friends. But then Senator Gordon and Senator Price, they triangulate with Representative Thomas as well. As you can see, there is a web here that illuminates before you. So know the person that you may know someone or have an entry, but do some homework before your meeting. Do some homework before your lobby day. Do some homework before you come in to make your ask, because there are always going to be other like-minded or friendly representatives that you can get audience and you can get your ask out as well. Sometimes you're going to ask for the same thing from each one. However, depending if you have a committee chair versus, let's say you good with the governor, whichever, the ask, if you can imagine, would be different. Okay? So employ some strategy. Again, we're highlighting here. We are making some connections, and we are seeing that some connections are more effective than others, right? Take time and build on that. Build on that and sit down and think as far as being resourceful as well, because sometimes you don't have 100,000 palm cards to give out. Sometimes you have 5 pieces of paper that you were able to print at the library, full color, both sided. Sometimes that's all you have. So you want to make your connections for your lobby day as effective as possible. Okay? Now, committees. Your bills are assigned by subject matter, usually. So that's how they would get into their respective committees. So each committee will hold space for testimony and discussion of the bills, meaning they would discuss it, but then they would open it up to the public so that the public can give their voice on the bills. The committees can make changes to these bills. They can pass the bill on the floor, and that's how we would see it would make it through the chambers as well, because they would introduce it to the floor. They can vote it down or just never hear or vote on it, meaning they can say, okay, we're not going to address that. We're not going to look at that. I don't like the name. It doesn't even sound like it was assigned properly. The importance of a committee cannot be overstated. That's where a lot of the work, that's where the groundwork is going to be at, okay? So anyone can testify. Now, when you're prepping your testimony, the reason why we have these testimonies is because the committee can line up a range of perspectives, but in order for your lobbying to be effective, you do want to prep. You don't have 20 minutes to have this conversation when you're addressing the committee. In many cases, you might have 2 to 5 minutes. That's it. So going back to that previous slide where you're going to introduce yourself, you're going to say where you are from as far as where you are in this matter. For example, I'm Octavia Coleman. I'm the director of the Central Georgia Democracy Center, advocating or representing the citizens of McDonough, Georgia. If I'm not a resident of McDonough, Georgia. If I am a concerned resident and I'm doing some lobbying and I got to go before the committee to give the testimony, I would say, yes, I am Octavia Coleman, a McDonough resident, and you can name your area generally. They'll ask for your address, but you don't have to give the numbered street address. That's for security reasons. But you can definitely say something like, I am Octavia, a McDonough resident, and I've been in the Kellytown area for the last 5 years. When you finish that statement, you want to move to why you are there. You are giving this testimony because what? Okay? Anticipate questions. The committee may ask you a question about your ask, about your testimony, what brought you there. And what you can do also, going back to our friendly representatives, right? You can plant questions with them. So if you've done your homework and you've done some legwork prior to that committee testimony, before the committee opens up the bill for public comment or testimony, you can say, hey, Representative Matter, can you ask this question while I'm giving testimony? right? That way it opens up the floor to multiple perspectives. That is the purpose of having the testimony session for the community, the committee, so that they can, they'll arrive at their presumption, right? But it's opened up to the community for scrutiny. It could be either scrutiny, it could be testimony for support, it could be testimony to, in opposition, what have you. But you're opening up the floor for the community to have a voice, okay? Now, here are some special considerations for community advocates seeking to pass a bill. Let's say you don't have a previous bill. You want to pass a bill for Medicaid expansion. That's common. That is popular. It's a hot topic right now in Georgia. So let's say, you want to pass a bill. You or your organization wants to pass a bill for Medicaid expansion. You will start with some groundwork with your local county commissioners. Aside from that, you want to ask these questions. Is your goal to pass your bill or to stop an opposing bill? So let's say your organization wants to pass a bill to expand Medicaid, but there's another bill on the floor not to pass or expand Medicaid. So ask the question, is your goal to get your bill passed or to stop the other bill from passing? Ask yourself, what are you willing to negotiate? And an important matter here is to make sure that you and your sponsors are on the same page. Your sponsors would be that representative of the House or that senator, right? You want to make sure that your organization, the people in your organization that are doing the lobbying, as well as your sponsor, everyone's on the same page. Because what you don't want to happen is to, let's say we're in the negotiating process, and I'm advocating for the residents of McDonough because they want Medicaid expansion. And I say, yes, the kitchen sink is up for debate. We can negotiate that. However, your bill sponsors has said, no, I'm willing to negotiate the garage. Kitchen sink is off the table, off limits. That's a conflict of interest, not a conflict of interest. That's a contradiction of the progression of your bill, okay? That's going to cause confusion where you have two parties on the same bill, but there's no cohesion. There's no agreement. You have some throwing away that kitchen sink, and then the sponsors are saying, no, the kitchen sink is an integral part of this piece of legislation. We need to keep the kitchen sink and throw away the garage, hypothetically, as an example, okay? So consistently emphasize the ways your bill would produce quality or a positive impact, right? Because again, you want to stay away from those sticky situations. You want to stay away from those unpersuasive arguments. You want to hone in, drive home why your bill is going to produce quality, or why your bill is going to have a positive impact for the community, okay? This is where, again, practice, because you want to practice the redirection, because those devil's advocates are going to try to get you caught up. Don't get caught up, okay? Now I've provided a list of references here or resources. Of course, we have, I showed you the Georgia House page or Georgia legislative page. You also want to or can go to the My Vote page. You can go to LexisNexis. You can go to gpb.org, and that's for the lawmakers. You can go to votesmart.org. That is to check your legislators' voting record. Again, these are the things that you would do in preparation to going to lobby, to organizing a lobby day. Also, you can go to Camp Wellstone. Those are for resources to help build your organization skills and the tools to help you find your win number, okay? And then also make it work. These are for additional resources for organizers who are interested in advocating for women and femmes in the workplace. Now, again, we talked about the legwork, how to prepare, how to get ready to talk to your representative at the Capitol, at the People's House. Well, how would you do that? How would you do it in the first place? So let's go from the beginning and work our way through this process. We will go to legis.ga.gov. Here we go. It's lunchtime. I'm ready to eat. All right. legis.ga.gov. And you can watch live proceedings there. You can look up your legislators and so much more. That's why I said in the beginning of this presentation, you want to make yourself familiar with that site. Okay? But look up your legislators. Look up who is over your district, who is over your area. And that's where you would start. Because again, you're advocating for your community. Now, if you are a part of an organization that is not within that community, you can start with the representative that is the foundation or that speaks to the ask, right? So if we're talking about environmental justice, you would find your representatives that are for environmental justice. If you are talking about agriculture, you would find your representatives that are for agriculture. If you are talking about education, you would find your representatives that have a foundation or that are for education. That's where you would start. And you would start by sending those emails and making calls into their office to schedule a meeting. You can also make calls into their office to say, hey, I see that you're on this bill, and for this legislative session, is there already a lobby day at the Capitol? If not, would you like to sponsor a lobby day? That representative would say, yes, I would love to sponsor a lobby day. Let's get it on the calendar. It would then be the organization, you, your family, your neighbors, whatever, your job to get people to the Capitol, get people to the People's House, to engage, to have a meet and greet, to have a press release or a press conference, to have lunch, a lunch and learn, where the representative would come and y'all would have lunch in a meeting room, and y'all would talk about this bill and what's needed as far as grassroots efforts are concerned to move the bill forward, right? This is where you would schedule that lobby day, where you would schedule, if they say, hey, we already have a lobby day on XYZ, well, great, let me schedule some meetings. This is where you would schedule your interaction with your representative on that day. Let me get on your schedule. Hey, I have myself and 2 of my neighbors are interested on this bill and we want to talk to you. If there's already a lobby day, great. Put us on a calendar during that lobby day. If there's not a lobby day, awesome. Would you mind hosting a lobby day? Would you mind hosting a press conference on the stairs of the Capitol? This is you're limitless, and I say that with limitation. Okay, so whatever the bandwidth of that representative is, that's how you would negotiate. That's how you would work with them. Okay. Now, if you have any questions or discussion or follow up, if you would like guidance on where to start, if you want me to take a listen to what you have in mind, feel free to visit ftccharity.org and schedule a partner call. You would schedule that partner call again once you are at ftccharity.org. You would click on the Central Georgia Democracy Center tab, and you will see right on that tab where it says schedule a partner call. Okay? I'm more than happy to sit down with you to discuss what you have and to put you in the right direction. If you would like a copy of this slide deck, send an email to ftccharity@gmail.com. It has been a pleasure walking through our first lobbying lunch and learn session. I will see you next month. I believe, well, I'm not even going to quote a date, but it will be the fourth Thursday of September. We'll be right back here discussing lobbying, okay? How we can be effective lobbyists in our community and for our concerns. So you enjoy the rest of your workday. Take care.